and welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead Podcast. Two Steps Ahead Podcast encouraging you, my friend, to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about what it means to think like a champion. Now, maybe you have heard things like that before, or perhaps you have heard about, having a growth mindset or mindset matters, things like that. But we're going to delve into some things more specific into what you can do and what it means to think like a champion. Now, over the course of the years that I've been doing this podcast, it's a theme or it's a subject that comes up more often than not, because it comes down to our mind. How our mind is, how we think, what our thoughts are like is how we're going to be, and it's going to let us know how we look upon things, how we problem solve, all these different kinds of things that come at us. We have to think about, we have to process, and then we have to respond or react. And so thinking like a champion, and it started back in, at least one of the episodes was episode 157 in the March Madness of Your Life, Achieve Your Shining Moments. And this is what I said back then as we get the show started. So let this idea sink in. The way you think is the way you are. If you think you're a champion, you will be one. If you think of yourself as a loser, you will be one, because it's all mindset. Take a look at anybody that has been successful. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, any number of successful people. They've wanted the ball when the game is on the line. They are not afraid to fail. They want the ball. That's the mindset you have to have. A lot of us are afraid to fail. We look at the negative and we're like, I don't think I can do that. But wait, if you don't think you can do that, you probably can't. And that's a negative / failing attitude to have. So sometimes we have to overcome ourselves and our limitations. We have to overcome our limitations to let that greatness come out. And limiting our limitations or overcoming our limitations, that might be the start of raising the standard in your life. So the way you think is the way you are. I was watching a movie recently called The Replacements, a football movie. Perhaps you've seen it. And there was a line in there that the coach, Gene Hackman, his character, says to Keanu Reeves, who is the quarterback of the football team. At the end of the game, Keanu Reeves' character, Shane Falco, calls an audible run play instead of a pass play. It doesn't work out very well. And so he tries to make excuses for I made the audible. And then Gene Hackman, the coach, tells him that winners always want the ball. And that's true. I mean, that's a line from a Hollywood movie, but it's true. Winners always want the ball. You can go and look up Michael Jordan and some of the quotes that he has said about his interaction with coaches and at the end of the game and how the coach thinks maybe we're going to do something else. And Michael Jordan is just like, no, give me the ball. Or Larry Bird the same way. There's a clip running around with, I think it was Casey Jones was the coach at the time. And he was going to run a play and use Larry Bird as a decoy. And Larry Bird looked at him and said, just get me the ball. And he made the basket, won the game. So winners want the ball. And so that's what it is about. If you want to be someone who thinks like a champion, or to put it more into perspective of us kind of modern day people, we could say successful people. And how do they think? Well, successful people, the first thing is they think the right kinds of thoughts. Well, what does right kind of thoughts mean? Well, if you're going to think, and the way you think is the way you are, well, you have to think the right way. So every action begins with a simple thought. Whether it's good or bad, it starts with a thought. So like I've said before, your mind controls your thoughts, and your thoughts control your actions. It goes from your mind, your heart, your hands. Or some might say heart, mind, hands, because if your heart is hardened, then your mind is going to think negative thoughts, bad thoughts, and then you're going to react. But either way, either direction, it starts with your thoughts. How do you think when you wake up in the morning? Do you think, oh, this is going to be a drag of a day? We all fall into that trap every now and then. I mean, on Mondays, it's like, oh, it's Monday. Well, on Fridays, it's like, hey, it's Friday. Our mindset, our perception of the day changes, right? It's Friday night versus, oh, it's Sunday night. Perception changes. So our attitudes change. But our thoughts control our actions. If we're constantly thinking about something, we're probably going to end up doing it. And so what we have to do, the first thing that successful people do is think the right kind of thoughts, and then they exercise control over your thoughts. Now, that's not the easiest thing to do. People will sit there and say, you need to control your actions. Well, actions may be a little bit easier to control than your thoughts. Definitely easier to control than your tongue. Tongue can't be tamed. But if we're going to control our thoughts, it requires exercise. We have to actively do that, actively change the way we think. And when you talk to people, especially experts in the field, they will sit there and say, well, you have to replace your negative thoughts with your positive thoughts, and they might tell you how to do that. But it's replacing those negative thoughts with a positive thought. Instead of thinking, oh, it's Monday morning, it's going to be a drag. It's Monday morning. What type of opportunities await for me today? I know a lot of teachers going back to school might be dreading the back to school. Some are excited. Probably most people are excited, but still, going back to school is difficult for everybody, except perhaps maybe the parents that are tired of their kids being home all summer, so they want them to get out of the house, go back to school. But the perspective that you have starts with your thoughts. And then your thoughts will start to think, okay, how can I be a good teacher? How can I be challenging to my students? What can I do to make this year an exciting year? Or if you just go to your job, maybe it's a job, like a blue collar job. Maybe it's a Joe job, as they used to call it back in the day, where you just work in the mini mart. I mean, a mini mart job is not just a Joe job. It's a very important job. I mean, there's a lot of people like myself that will frequent the mini mart, and the people behind the counter are going to make or break my experience there, make or break if I return. And so every interaction we have starts with our thoughts. Every customer that comes in, every phone call I take, whether it's social or business, every interaction I have driving, it starts with our thoughts on how we're going to respond, because it is a privilege to be living in the country that we're living today. So exercise control over your thoughts and practice that. But again, successful people think the right kind of thoughts. Every action begins with a simple thought, whether that thought is good or bad, and then the action will follow. Successful people will think positive thoughts. So we're thinking the right kind of thoughts. So the right kind of thoughts are going to be something along the lines of, I get up, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to go into work, I'm going to get things done, I'm going to try to be efficient with my time, I'm not going to try to gossip too much, I'm going to be professional on the phones, even though people that call in aren't the most professional and are frustrating. I'm going to go about my business. I need to think about maybe growing the business, or maybe think about how my first period class is going to be compared to my 8th period class, or my lunchtime. What am I going to do in my lunchtime? Whatever it is, we have the thoughts that we're going to think that we want to do. We want to be positive. We want to be encouraging. We want to be able to be helpful. We want to be inspirational. We want to help others raise the standard in their lives. So these are all the things that I'm going to do. How do I go about doing it? And so then you create a game plan, right? But then you have to also have those positive thoughts as well. Positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. So the right kind of thoughts equal the right kind of actions. Positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. So if our actions lead us, or if our thoughts lead us to our actions, and they're positive thoughts, then our actions are going to be the right actions. I've got a difficult student I have to deal with. I've got a troublesome boss I need to deal with. How am I going to go about doing that? It's easy to be negative. It's always easy to teach the smart kids. It's the ones that struggle that are harder. The easy and fun-loving coworkers are fun to be around. It's the boss that's difficult. So, positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. Mindset is everything.
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. And it's all mentality. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality.
Are you king of your jungle because of your mentality? Mentality is the only difference between positive success, negative lack of success. Now, that's not the only thing, obviously. You have hard work and all this other stuff, and some might say, timing is everything. So there's a few more things into that equation. But again, it starts with your thoughts. Can you do it? Are you capable of doing it? I mean, you can look at videos of little toddlers going to jump in the pool, and it takes them a while. And then when they do it the first time, they start to realize that, hey, this is fun. I'm going to do it over and over and over again. Or maybe if you see somebody have success that they never had before in something, they feel more confident and they have more success. Maybe they had a lead and they made a sale. So they get excited, they get pumped. Maybe they passed a test. And so they get excited, they get pumped, they see that success, they want to continue it. Because there is a difference not only in our mentality and our mindset, but there is a difference in how we feel. If we feel good, we're going to think positive thoughts, think the right thoughts, right? But how do we keep ourselves feeling good all the time? Well, we have to have positive outcomes. We have to have success, whatever that might be. A little bit of success or a lot of bit of success. Recording an out or getting a base hit. Sometimes, when you're in a drought and you're a baseball player and you just get that base hit, even if it's a little squibber, the least impressive of hits, but you get a hit and you get on base. And now that snaps that slump and all of a sudden you go on a hitting streak, right? And now everything changes. Your mindset changes, your approach changes, your attitude changes. You start having success. Because as we suffer the many defeats in life, they tend to add up and we tend to get negative and we tend to kind of doubt ourselves. And we start to think, can I really do this? Those are the times that we need to particularly stay positive and think positive thoughts. As a baseball player, you think, okay, am I doing the fundamentals right? Am I keeping everything in line that I need to do? Are my hands drifting? Am I looking someplace different? Is my bat dipping? Whatever. Basketball, you're shooting. Maybe your fundamentals are off. In business, maybe you're not focused on the research or whatever you do in business to become successful. And so you go back to the fundamentals. You go back to doing what you want to do. There was an interview one time of Kobe Bryant, and it was his first year, I think, in the league. And toward the end of the season, the second half of the season, his jump shots started to fall short of the rim. He thought that, in the beginning, his legs and everything were strong and he was making shots. Then toward the end of the season, those shots weren't falling. Well, he started to realize that his leg strength wasn't there. And so in the offseason, he knew he had to build his leg strength to keep his jump shot consistent throughout the entire season, 82 plus games if you include the playoffs. And so he knew that that was what he had to do, but he kept shooting. He kept shooting. He kept shooting. He kept playing his game because he knew in the coming years, he would prepare himself so that he would make those shots and his body would be in a situation to be in condition and have strength to play that second half of the season. And so it was that mindset, even though he was struggling, even though he wasn't making the shots, maybe his shooting percentage goes down, maybe the media starts talking negative towards him. He kept his mindset focused on the positive, and he went on to be one of the greatest players in the NBA. So successful people think the right kind of thoughts. Every action begins with a simple thought, whether that's good or bad, but let's focus on the positive. So every good thought we think, then we start to think more and more about how we can take that good thought and put it into action. And then our hands go and do it. We exercise control over our thoughts, meaning basically, let's start with just keeping the negative thoughts out, self-doubt out. And then successful people think positive thoughts because positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. And as we just heard, you have a lion's mentality. Are you king of your jungle? Because mentality is the only difference between the lion or the elephant. One thinks lunch, the other thinks run. But then it also comes back to greatness, because that's the ultimate thing, is bringing that greatness out of us, raising the standard in our lives so we can bring out our inner greatness. And that inner greatness could be anything that's good, anything that's positive, whether it's an influence over somebody else as like a mentor, or whether you're just doing your job and achieving your goals, maybe your quotas, or you go to class and you pass some tests, or you're a teacher and you have a great day regardless of all the obstacles that come your way, because we do have greatness in us.
You have greatness within you. You have the ability to do more than you can ever begin to imagine. See, I believe that anybody through observation and practice can perform at the level of excellence. But when you're pursuing your greatness, this is worth writing down. You don't know what your limits are, and you act like you don't have any. So I say to you, you have something special. You have greatness within you.
See, if you don't think you have limits, you act like you don't have limits. Now, sometimes that's a bad thing. We've seen celebrities and people that are popular do things they shouldn't because they know they can get away with it, or they think they can get away with it. So again, a cautionary tale. But if we think we have no limits, the sky's the limit, right? We can do whatever we want. We're going to go out there and build a business. We're going to go out there and be teacher of the year. We're going to go out there and do great things. We're going to inspire other people. We're going to start an online store. Whatever it is you want to do, you think you can do it. See, there's a difference. It's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. You're confident knowing that you can do whatever it is you set your mind to. And maybe some people perceive it as arrogance, but you're just confident, okay? You don't have to brag about it. You don't have to tell everybody about it. You just know that you have the capability and the abilities to get whatever it is done and accomplished. Maybe it's because you've practiced, you've put in the time, you've worked for it, you've studied, you've prepared is what it comes down to. And your preparation has now made you ready. And then there's the arrogance. And arrogance tends to be a step below that confidence, because arrogance tends to be people that maybe they can get it done, but they don't have the confidence in themselves. Maybe they have some self-doubt. Maybe they haven't really put in the time. Maybe they haven't prepared. So maybe there's some uncertainty. Maybe there's a little bit of jealousy or envy in them from somebody else. And so they have an insecurity about them. And so they're not quite sure they can get the job done, but they're going to boast about it. They're going to say, oh, yes, I'm the best. I can do this. Look what I've done. They give you your accolades, their resume, and they tell you all this stuff while you're over here just doing your thing. And when someone looks at me, a lot of times they might confuse arrogance with confidence. I don't know, but there's a couple times that it's popped up where it's like, you think you can do things. And it's like, well, yeah, I have confidence in my ability to do whatever I set out to do. Now, whether I achieve it or not, it's a different story. Going back to the baseball or basketball analogy, I have the confidence to hit the ball. Well, right now I'm in a slump. I still have the confidence that I can hit the ball. And pretty soon I'm going to get that squib hit. That's going to break me out of my slump. That's going to get me into a streak now. And so I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to do what I'm supposed to do to be successful. Even though I'm in a slump, I'm going to have my confidence because my mind is right. I'm thinking the right kind of thoughts. And those thoughts are positive thoughts. And then successful people think correct thoughts. Correct thinking is positive thinking. So you have the right kind of thoughts, and those thoughts are positive because positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. And now we have to think correctly, which again moves on with that positive thinking. So if you think about children that have been raised in a loving home, maybe they've had nurturing parents, parents that are involved. And then you have children that were maybe involved in or raised in a house where the parents weren't involved. Maybe they were a little bit more angry. Maybe they weren't as loving. Children tend to turn out the way they were raised, kind of that nature versus nurture thing. Not always, but I've seen it time and time again, growing up myself and then being in education and other things I've been a part of. You see where kids will kind of react to or be what they've seen. They become what they've seen. Unfortunately, when you take it to more of an extreme level, an abused child becomes an abuser. A child of an alcoholic will respond accordingly. Maybe they don't become an alcohol, but they respond and they live under these conditions. Anxiety, stress, whatever, fear. And so it's important to look at that from a perspective of somebody that is going to have an influence over someone's life, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a mentor, whether you're a coach, whatever, a boss. See, all these positions, when you're in a position of, let's just call it authority, but when you're in that type of position, you're always teaching. You're always being a leader. Lead by example. Teach. Share your experience. Let others teach you. Because that's what it becomes. When you want to become the best leader, you're not good at everything. You're good at leading, and then you let those that have the expertise under you do their jobs, okay? So our positive mindset is, I've got people that I need to inspire to do their work, regardless of the pay, regardless of the work conditions. Hopefully they're, good. But again, people are always going to be disgruntled for whatever reason. So I got to make sure that I invest in each one of these people, knowing that each one of these people are valuable, but also knowing that this person might have had a bad experience at their former job. This person might have had a bad experience at home. This person might have had a bad experience in social life. And so it's hard for them to leave that at the door. And so we recognize that. Just like as teachers, when children come in, typically, not always, but typically you can tell which child comes from a better home than others for whatever reason. And so then it becomes more difficult for us because our task at educating, for example, is harder because we don't have that home support. But again, it's not a one size fits all because people will break the mold all the time. You see people coming from terrible home life situations and they go on to be the greatest parent, grandparent, family member, community member, whatever. But somewhere along the lines, somewhere in that pendulum of life, someone came in and influenced them and showed them how to do it, did not give up on them, and probably changed the way that person thought into the correct kind of thoughts, the positive thoughts that, yes, you do matter. Yes, you can achieve great things. That's the message you have to be preaching, is that people can do great things. Now, greatness can be defined by just going through life, having a family, and raising kids. That's success. Some can go on and be musicians and tour the world. Some might create some great invention that affects everybody for the positive. Some might be helping people with addiction. And others might be just surviving day to day. because your home life or your situation that you grew up in wasn't great. Your parental support is not there. You really don't have a whole lot of friends. There's not a lot going on, but you're surviving day to day. That's success. See, you don't want to put yourself again in that box that society tries to put you in. You're in this box, and that's how you have to live. But there's this great big world outside that box, color outside the lines. Don't let life and society dictate how you live. Because again, if you're having the right kind of thoughts, if those thoughts are positive, then your actions are going to be positive. And then you start thinking those correct thoughts. You're going to be a survivor. You're going to have success. You're going to do great things. So correct thinking is positive thinking, but correct thinking is also constructive, not destructive. See, anybody can criticize and be a destroyer. That's the easiest thing to do. In a heartbeat, in a sentence, in a word, you can cut someone down. That's simple. Can't control your tongue, but your mind you can control. And if you have those positive thoughts, then your tongue is going to speak positive things. If you have the right kind of thoughts, then your tongue is going to speak the right kind of things. If you have correct thoughts, then your tongue is going to speak the correct things. And so anyone can criticize and be a destroyer. It takes skill to be a builder. It takes skill to lift someone up. And that skill doesn't come naturally because we have a tendency to be negative and want to tear people down because of jealousy, envy, whatever. We want to tear down instead of build up. And so we need to practice that skill of building up. And a lot of times you'll find athletes and musicians and other successful people, you may have competition with each other, but a lot of times there's collaboration, there's conversation. I mean, people thought Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were at odds with each other, and they became really good friends. Kobe sought him out, talked to him, tried to figure out why he was successful, asked questions. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, they started out to be rivals, became good friends, which is a fascinating story when you hear about the evolution of their friendship. And so even competitors, the good ones, the rivals, at some point they seek each other out because they're thinking the correct thoughts. If that person is successful, how can I be successful? See, in Vegas, they recently have taken down these casinos, right? The Tropicana. I think the A's stadium is going to be built on the grounds of what the Tropicana used to be. And then you had, I think it was the Mirage. The one with the volcano that erupted. And now I think that one came down. And they're going to put up like a Hard Rock, a hotel, I guess that's like in the shape of a guitar. But when you look at these casinos, it takes them years to build. But when they implode, it just takes seconds. Now, sure, it might take a few weeks of planning to make sure the detonators are correct and the explosive devices are in the right place so that it falls where they want it to fall. And it's pretty amazing to watch how they can make this structure just collapse in on itself and not affect the buildings around it. But it takes seconds for it to implode. However, it takes years to build because it is easier and quicker to destroy. It's harder and it takes longer to build. So when we look about our thoughts, as we build our thoughts in a constructive way, it might take time. It might take energy. It might take effort. And it might take purpose, purposeful thinking, purposeful action. But you can do it. Constructive thinkers focus on improvement. They want to get better. Are you focusing on improvement? Are you focusing on trying to get better? Tiger Woods, at the top of his golf game, he was winning everything. But at the top of his golf game, he decided that he wanted to kind of change things up, his swing, his putt, change his game. And people thought it was kind of odd that here, the greatest golfer in the world at the time, was going to mix things up. Why mess with perfection, as they say, right? But he wanted to because he felt he could get better. And by changing his swing a little bit, altering some things, he did indeed get better. His golf game became better. his swing, his putt, chip, all became better. He did not just rest on what he had. He had constructive thinking because he kept wanting to improve, improve, improve. So constructive thinkers, they're discerning. They take the information, analyze it. Maybe they test it. Maybe they do some research, and then they either accept it or reject it. And that's one thing that we need to do as people in general. Even if you don't care about any of this, what you should really do is be someone that is a constructive thinker. You should take the information and not just accept it for whatever it is. You should analyze it, test it, research it, check it out, fact check it, as they say, and then decide. But see, in society today, and I think that's where we are in society, a lot of people just take the information as is, whether it's social media, whether it's the news, whether it's at the water cooler, whether it's a fortune cookie, and just take it as is. There's no testing it. There's no researching the information. The stuff that I do, I research it. I look it up. I just don't sit down and spew things and hope it sticks. But I try to make it constructive so that when you listen or you watch this, you get something out of it, something that is constructive, something that makes you think, something that maybe helps you reflect on your own self, because I do want you to raise the standard in your life, because I do want you to bring out your inner greatness so that you can have a better life. I do want you to think positive thoughts, those right kind of thoughts, those correct thoughts, constructive thoughts to help you get better. Because closed-minded, if you're closed-minded, and I'm not saying be open-minded that your brain leaks out, but you want to have some sense of open-mindedness where you listen. That's what constructive thinking is. You listen to what's going on, analyze it, test it, research it, figure out if it's for you, and then either reject it, accept it, or some variation of it. But when you're open-minded, you just take everything in and you're brainwashed. If you're closed-minded, then you lack growth. It leads to a mental death. So there is a balance. If you're closed-minded, you're not going to be able to accept new ideas. You're not going to be able to accept new things that come our way. You know, AI could be one of those things that a lot of people are still closed-minded to, and some are way open-minded. Let's just take it all in. Some are like, no, Terminator's coming. We can't have AI. Some are like, yes, AI for everything. And then there's some in the middle like, how can this benefit me? And what are the cautionary tales I should be looking for? Because there are some dangers to it as well. But being closed-minded stifles growth, leads to mental death. If you're completely open-minded, not only will your brain leak out, but it leads to confusion, weakness. You're not sure what to think. You know, it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know, our mindset. She has three options. The porridge is too hot, too cold, just right. The bed is too hard, too soft, just right. Everything's too hard, too soft, too right. And then boom, she's comfortable until the bears come. Then she got the hell out of there. But that's what we need to do. We need to test things, think about things. Is this what I'm hearing right? Is it too wrong? Is it too radical? Is it unbelievable, or is it just right? Are things too hard, too soft, or just right? You got to think about that. But again, when you're talking about successful people think the right kind of thoughts. Remember, every action begins with a simple thought, whether good or bad. It starts with a thought. Your mind controls your thoughts. Your thoughts control your action. Mind, heart, hand. And then we need to exercise control over our thoughts. Successful people think positive thoughts because positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. Remember, mindset is everything. Successful people think correct thoughts. Correct thinking is positive thinking. Correct thinking is constructive thinking. And constructive thinkers focus on improvement. They take the information, they analyze it, they test it, they research it, and then they either accept it or reject it. Successful people, or just in general, people in general, if you have the correct thinking, you don't hold a grudge. You don't hold a grudge. Grudge holding is negative thinking. It leads to things like revenge, hate, talking bad about that person, stuff like that. And holding a grudge, a lot of people hold grudges. I mean, we see a whole society, a whole country of people holding grudges. But forgiveness is the key because it frees you from anger, from hate, from revenge, and all those other negative thoughts that cloud your thinking. How can you be a constructive thinker? How can you have positive thoughts if this cloud of negativity is hanging over you? You got to get rid of it. And the only way to get rid of it is through forgiveness, which again, might take effort, might take time, might take practice. But holding a grudge is all about negative thinking. So you got to let it go. Successful people, and this is one of my favorite ones, successful people think big thoughts. Think big. Think outside that box. There's a whole whiteboard or a whole color outside the lines. There's a whole page beyond the picture. So dream so big, you should dream so big that it scares you. How am I going to ever achieve that? I don't know. But dream it, think it, go do it. That's how big your dream should be. If you don't get that, whoa, what is, wow, that amazed feeling about your dreams, why dream? Why dream small? Dream big. I always like to ask that question, especially anybody really, but if you could do any job, any dream job, what would it be? Like anything, sky's the limit, whatever, anything. And it's amazing that a lot of people don't have what their dream job would be. I mean, for me, I would love to do play-by-play for the Twins. That'd be my dream job. Or maybe any baseball team for that matter. That would be fun. But dream big. You can think of all those dreamers out there that created big things. I mean, Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, he dreamt big. Came up with Tesla. Think of the computer technology industry and all those people that thought big. I mean, think about computers before computers were around. Maybe you can't comprehend it. Maybe you come from a generation that all you know is technology. Maybe you grew up on technology and that's all you know. All you know is social media. All you know is GPS. All you know is cell phones. All you know is what we have today. And you don't know what life was like before technology. I mean, you think about maybe if you go back to the 80s, let's say, and someone asked, what job do you want when you grow up or post high school? And you might list off a few things. Nobody really had the mindset of thinking that I'm going to be in the cell phone business. It wasn't around. And so there's things that have come along in life through technology that somebody had to dream big, somebody had positive thoughts, and somebody went and did it. What about healthcare? What about medicine? What about music? What about athleticism and athletes? I mean, not too long ago, we just had a show, a guest, David, he was in strength and conditioning, and he was telling us a little bit about how athletes train and what they do. And I talked to him a little bit more, kind of before and after, and he was telling me all kinds of insights into the body and what makes an athlete bigger, stronger, faster, and is bigger, stronger, faster really important or healthy for that athlete. So there's a lot of science behind it. And it's growing. The science of strength and conditioning is growing. The science of science is growing. I mean, think about the Olympics that just ended and all those athletes that at one time dreamt about winning the gold and then went to Paris and won the gold. They had their golden moment. They dreamt so big that they're like, whoa, how am I going to achieve this? And then they went in and put in the work and they made their dreams come true. They did it. So dream so big and don't let anyone tell you you can't do it. Because again, mindset is everything. I think back to an episode I did, episode 88, or mindset is the foundation for success. And this is how that went.
It comes down to how you think. I have to take a test. I'm not going to pass. Well, you're probably not. I have a meeting. Probably going to fail the meeting. Well, you probably are. Society gives you a box, and they want you to live in this box. There is a great big world outside that box. Don't be boxed in. Don't live in a box. Live outside the box. Think outside the box. Because there's a whole big world out there that you can do. Maybe you can't do it in this particular thing that you're in. Like I said, I can't lift weights over my head to win a gold medal. So I have expectations and realistic expectations on what I can and can't do. Can I get a degree? Well, I don't think you can. Why? Why are you letting somebody say you can't go back to school and get a degree? Sure you can. Education is something that you can definitely do, and education can definitely open up doors that you might not think are ever there. That's how I got into education. I was always radio focused. And then, of course, if you follow radio, you know people are always getting laid off all the time, downsizing. I think the latest story I read in the entertainment world is that those late night television shows might be going away at some point, maybe over the next 10 years. They haven't replaced them. I know the radio business just took some cuts. People across the country losing their jobs. So the entertainment business is hard. Remember years ago, about, I think it was 2008, maybe you're around, maybe you're old enough to remember all the shows that just disappeared because of cuts. So the entertainment world is a difficult world to be a part of. And so I went and got a master's degree, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. I had thoughts of maybe, getting into athletics or something. And then a few years later, a job in education and teaching radio broadcasting at a community college opened up. And it was because I had a degree. Now, I never got an education, a formal education in radio broadcasting, but I had years of experience, had done it for a number of years. And so that combined with my education of a master's got me into an education field that then opened up opportunities in the world of education that I never really thought about even doing. So education can open up doors for you, things that you might not even be thinking about. And it might not be now, but it might be years down the road. So something to consider, perhaps, if you want to raise the standard in your life, perhaps education or some sort of training, like a jobs program or some sort of technical career, whether it's mechanic, fiber optics, computers, whatever. Think about that. So we have successful people thinking big thoughts, their wow moment. And you have people thinking positive thoughts and people thinking the right kind of thoughts and people thinking correct thoughts, constructive thoughts. They take the information, they analyze it, they test it, they research it. Then they decide whether or not they want to accept it or reject it. But then it comes down to something that a lot of people kind of forget. I think this is a missing component in all of this. Successful people think pure thoughts. Pure thoughts? What does that have to do with anything? Well, a pure thought life is important for emotional, mental, and physical health. Emotional, mental, and physical health. So you have to think the right way, but if you're not having these pure thoughts, then something in you, the ability or maybe capability of doing whatever it is that your wow dream job is, might be affected in the capability of doing it. So don't dwell on the wrong things others have done to you. That's negative thinking. Let it go. Forgive. You don't have to forget. You can forgive, learn from it, maybe kick those people out of your lives forever if you so choose, and then move on. Live, learn, forgive, move on. Nowhere in that is forget. What is thinking pure thoughts? Well, what about having honesty? Acting honest. Having an honest business. Conducting your business practices honestly. Teaching honestly. Maybe putting aside your motives, your self-motives, and thinking what's best for the student, thinking what's best for the employee, for the customer. Maybe having integrity. Do what you actually say you're going to do. That's one of the hardest things that people have, I think, fulfilling is their word, their integrity. Character counts. Do what you say. If you say you're going to do something, do it, and do it honestly. Avoid jealousy. Jealousy is another thing that can impede our success. We can work on our goals, our dreams, our aspirations. We can do it our way. But if we start getting jealous of somebody else, then maybe that jealousy is going to influence how we do something, and how we do something, the way that someone else is doing it or the way we think they're doing it, it's going to affect our success. So you got to do it your way. So avoid jealousy. One of the things that people have a hard time, because society tells us it's okay, but one of the biggest dream killers is drugs and alcohol. Now, I'm not talking about going on a Friday night, having a drink. But yeah, drugs and alcohol is the biggest dream killer for many reasons. It impairs thinking. It clouds your judgment. It makes you less than your best. And that's what a lot of people will tell you. Why are you going to put something into your system that's going to negatively affect how you perform? I mean, that's why a lot of athletes will take performance enhancing drugs. They're putting something in their system that they hope makes them perform better. Drugs and alcohol, not going to do that. They will impair your performance. Drinking and driving impairs your performance. Whatever you think about marijuana, I've seen it many times as an educator at the college level. Smoking marijuana impairs your performance. I don't need people to throw research at me and tell me that that's not the case. I don't need any of that. I have literally witnessed firsthand, time and time again, where students have gotten high before class. They come to class and their performance, because the classes I've taught are performance-based classes, terrible. So I've seen it. Drugs and alcohol impair thinking, clouds judgment, makes you less than your best. So why engage it? You hear about many athletes falling into this trap too. I mean, you think about someone like a Darryl Strawberry, or maybe Steve Howe, or any number of athletes. Now, some of them overcame it, some of them did not. Some of them overcame it to have success in their lives, some have not. But there's story upon story upon story of athletes. I mean, you think about Barry Bonds and all the steroids. Now, you can argue whether or not he did it, he didn't, it benefited him, it didn't. You can argue all that. But the stigma is he's not in the Hall of Fame. The stigma is those performance-enhancing drugs, Balco, and all the other athletes that were associated with it have been negative, a negative impact on his life, on his success. And again, that's the other thing too, is association. You know, you can be associated with some people that are doing some negative things, and that could impact you. But then you might want to think constructively and ask yourself, should I be really hanging around these people? Are they a good influence? Because again, part of thinking right then is choosing the support group around you to help you achieve your big dreams. You want that support group around you to help you get to where you want to be. But again, avoid jealousy, avoid drugs, alcohol, avoid being dishonest. Have honesty, have integrity, because character counts. Think those pure thoughts. Have a strong emotional, mental, and physical health, because that's what's going to give you the capability and the ability to do things. You can think it all you want, but you have to be able to do it. So go do it. I think back to an interview. I think Motley Crue, they each wrote out a book. Vince Neil wrote his book. Nikki Sixx wrote his book, The Heroin Diaries. I think Tommy wrote Tommyland. I don't think Mick Mars wrote one. But anyways, I read them all. And one of the things that was kind of an underlying tone, and Nikki Sixx came out and just said it blatantly, but all their music up to their album, Dr. Feelgood, they wrote while they were high, and they think it was, at the time, great music, and maybe you like it, maybe you didn't. But it wasn't until they got clean and sober that they were able to sit down and write Dr. Feelgood, and it became a number one. Number one hit, number one song, number one album, all that. And they realized that it was clean, sober living that allowed their creativity, their lyrics, their music, everything to be better. They performed better because they weren't impaired. And then they wish they could have gone back and started over. And that was an underlying theme with kind of all the guys that wrote their books. I wouldn't put too much stock in the movie Dirt, but if you read their books, you can see that drugs impaired their ability to really take off. So imagine just how successful they could have been if perhaps drugs and alcohol didn't affect them. And that's many people are that way too. But again, you have to be able to control what you put into your body, and does it impair you? And then finally, you have successful people think unique thoughts. So you've got successful people thinking the right kind of thoughts, thinking positive thoughts, thinking correct thoughts, constructive thinking. You take in the information, analyze it, test it, research it, then decide whether you want to accept it or reject it. You think big thoughts, dream big. You think pure thoughts, have honesty, integrity, because character counts. But then you have unique thoughts. And again, you got to eliminate the negative. You got to eliminate the worry, the envy, the jealousy, the embarrassment, the anger. These type of negative emotions lead to negative thoughts. And some of these emotions could come from our journey of trying to be successful. Maybe we try something, we fail, so we get embarrassed, or maybe we get angry, we maybe get mad, or maybe somebody reaches their success before us, so we get a little bit of jealousy in us. But none of those emotions, worry, envy, jealousy, embarrassment, anger, none of those emotions need to control you. You can get past each one of them by focusing on the positive opposite. Think outside the box. Color outside the lines. Attitude is everything in life. So be confident in your thoughts. Be confident in your actions. Be confident knowing that you can do that. And if you haven't done it already, be confident knowing that you're working to get there. Don't be afraid if you're the only one going down the road of life a certain way, because again, you're thinking unique thoughts. Your dreams are different. Your dreams are so big, so different, so unique, so positive that others can't keep up. Others can't think of it. I think there was a saying that the U.S. Patent Office put out in 1899. Okay, the Patent Office is where you apply for a patent, which protects your rights to, produce things, okay, and to make things. And so the Patent Office, I believe it was 1899, came out with a statement that said everything that could be invented has already been invented, something like that. That was 1899. So over 100 and some years ago, the Patent Office, whoever was in the Patent Office and whoever came out with that statement had no vision for the future. Everything that could be invented already was. No more patents. Could you imagine what life would be like today if we thought 1899 was it? Crazy. So again, think uniquely. Think outside the box. Others might not see your vision. Others might not see your dreams. They might not be able to understand it. They might not know what's going on, but you do. And that's all that matters. Because again, mindset is everything.
If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win, but you think you can't, it is almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you've lost. For out in this world we find success begins with a person's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win the prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the person who wins is the one who thinks he can.
I can. I can. Two simple words. I can. I can do it. You have to think high to rise. Pretty much sums up everything. Think high to rise. It's your will, what's inside you, the will inside you. It's your state of mind. Your state of mind. So successful people, again, will think correct thoughts. Those correct thoughts are positive thoughts. Correct thinking is constructive thinking. Constructive thinkers focus on improvement to get better. Constructive thinkers are discerning. They take in the information. They think about it. They analyze it. They test it. They research it. And then they decide whether or not to accept it. You're going to think the right kind of thoughts. Remember, every action begins with a simple thought. And then from that simple thought, we're going to think about it. We're going to start to develop a plan, and then our action. Mind, heart, hand. Successful people think positive thoughts. Like we said, state of mind. Successful people will think big thoughts, dreams so big it scares you. And don't let others say that you can't. Successful people think pure thoughts, because pure thoughts, honesty, integrity, character, leads us to having a positive emotional, mental, and physical health. And then successful people think unique thoughts outside the box thinking, and then have confidence to know that you can do it, because it is the state of mind. If you think you can, you probably will. If you think you can't, you probably won't, because how you think is how you are. This is Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. Check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P, radiowarp.com. You can click on the Two Steps Ahead Podcast logo, and all of our past shows pop up in video form. There's an orange banner across the screen. Click on that, takes you to our SoundCloud page. All of our audio shows are there. You can click and download them and take them with you on the go. You can pretty much listen to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Edify, any of those places. You can do an internet search, TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and we pop up. Hey Siri, hey Google, hey Alexa, play TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and our show pops up. So we're pretty easy to find. You can get us on social media. Everything is Two Steps Ahead Podcast. And again, two is TWO, but Two Steps Ahead Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook. And you can email the show, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. And again, I encourage you to reach out if there's anything that I can help you with. And if I can't help you, then I can try to put you in touch with somebody that can. But mindset is everything. How you think is how you are. So make sure you think high so you can rise high. And if you rise high, you're going to have success in life. And the more success you have in life, again, whatever that means. Remember, success to you is different from me, different from everybody else. So whatever your success is, whatever your goals are, whatever you want to achieve, from the smallest little thing to the grandest of things, it's yours. Own it. Go after it. Accept it. And once you gain that success, celebrate it, because you've earned it. Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend. And until next time, God bless.